Our healthcare system is under intense pressure these days. In all likelihood, it's going to get a lot worse, unless something changes. The goal for my talk today is to plant a seed of change, if you will, specifically to get people starting to think about changing some of their current beliefs related to exercising. Now, if you've ever tried to change someone's long-held belief that was different than yours, good luck. You probably weren't that successful. You see, the longer we hold a belief in our heads, typically the harder it is to change it. Let me share an example from my childhood. Growing up in the early 60s, I was repeatedly told, Michael, you need a lot more soap suds on those hands to get them clean. Well, six decades have passed by, and I still hold the same cognitive bias belief that I need a lot of soap suds to get things clean, be it my car, the dishes, or of course my hands. This is despite knowing that science has said all you really need is an emulsifier and warm water. The soap suds are rather a gimmick. In order to change that belief, I would need a lot more credible context. Information I could take and massage in my brain and reason with to tell me basically that I don't need soap suds to get things clean. In an effort to build context for this talk, I would like to ask the audience 5 questions. Simply raise your hand, participate, if you're answering yes. Question 1. Do you love exercising? Question 2. If you could get it, do you love a great sleep? Question 3. Do you know of anyone, perhaps yourself, who has ever struggled to consistently exercise in life? I'm talking 2 to 3 times a week, every week after week, excluding times of illness or injury. Question 4. If you were required to do taxes, do you love doing your taxes every year? Question 5. If you owed on your taxes, have you ever missed filing them on time? Okay. Please keep those answers in mind. I'll come back to them later in the talk. Now, to further build on the context for this discussion, I would like to talk about things that humans have in common with each other. Despite all the fighting going on around the globe, and there's far too much of that, we share a lot more in common with each other than not. Did you know, for example, that the majority of humans cannot hold their eyes wide open during the intense moment of a sneeze? At my expense, please have a small chuckle here as I try to do this. I couldn't do it then. I can't do it now. Good luck trying yourself if you want later. Now, more germane to this talk, there are 2 things that many of us share in common with each other. 1, science has told us undeniably that consistent exercise throughout life is probably our best way to achieve good health and longevity. 2, studies and surveys have shown, unfortunately, the majority of humans do not consistently exercise, despite knowing the negative repercussions that can occur by not doing exercise. This would seem like a paradox of sorts. On one hand, we know we're supposed to exercise consistently for health and longevity, and yet we don't, even we know there's negative repercussions to be had. This brings up the question, why consistent exercise is so elusive or eludes so many? The answer is really simple. It's simply easier not to exercise. Think about it. It's easier for our brain to have us not exercise than it is to have us exercise. Thank you. Wouldn't it be nice if it were that simple? It's actually extremely complex. I could talk for hours on this. There's a lot of moving pieces. Genetics, socioeconomic, physiology, and of course, psychological aspects. Let's take a little bit more of a look at this and see what we can uncover. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. Because behavior is so very repeatable, it's also very predictable. Now, this pertains to consistent exercise because the youthful body is really tolerant of unhealthy behaviors or abuse. The aging body, not so much, as I'm sure maybe some of you have started to come to terms with as you've gotten older. Somewhere out there in the world, I have no doubt, there's an elite level athlete, world class, who drinks excessively, smokes, probably doesn't sleep well, and yet still performs at a high level. Those same behaviors brought forward later in life for them will not serve them well at all. Now, exercise as a definition requires a bodily exertion, a laborious or perceptible effort for the sake of developing and or maintaining physical fitness. Now, as an avid cyclist, if I were to sit on a recumbent bike, that's where you lean back nice and comfy, set a low resistance and start pedaling. By the way, I'd be using 2 legs. This is not exercise technically for me. There's no exertion. If I use the same scenario and found an individual who's been sedentary for 5 years, struggled for weight for as long, that would become an exercise situation very quickly. The point being, one exercise does not fit all. I've been in the fitness sector for a long time, over 45 years, and if fitness were a religion, and to some it might be, what I'm about to say would be blasphemy. You see, I hate exercising. Seriously, I hate exercising, and I'm always looking for excuses not to do it. But despite how I feel about exercising, I love what exercise can do for me. So I view it as a necessary evil, given the alternative is far worse. This mindset allows me to avoid any cognitive dissonances from things like the guilt from society, the stress of trying to love doing something that I really don't love doing, let alone it also builds on my empathy towards those that do struggle with consistent exercise. Of the many things that Einstein has said, this is one of my favorite quotes. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. For myself, growing up, we had a black and white TV, weighed about 150 pounds, rabbit ears, 3 channels, no remote control. There was nothing to watch anyway. We were bored, so we ended up playing a lot. Nothing else to do. We played outside. We were very active. Today, technology obviously has made life so much easier, and as a result, humans far more sedentary. To counter this, we need fresh new thinking. For myself, this entailed going back to school and learning more about what happens from above the neck and applying that to fitness and health overall. Now, you've probably heard this. What about no pain, no gain? Listen. If you're an athlete, I get it. You've got to push your limits because you're competing. But otherwise, no pain, no gain is stupid. Especially when internalized as a belief that pain is required for progress. It's not. Consider this. You've probably heard of something called the placebo effect. How about the nocebo effect? It's a negative expectation leading to perceived pain. What kind of a belief is that to bring into your workout with you? Now, what I think you should start to consider changing to is a belief that says, no strain, no gain. Progress through effort, not pain, will get you closer to consistent exercise. Inherently, our brain is a great defender of calories for survival reasons. And by extension, making consistent exercise more challenging. Why? Exercise burns calories. Now, yet another challenge to consistent exercise is something called denervation. This can be resulted from several sources, including being sedentary. Its effect is a loss of muscle coordination and movement over time, which then results in, for many, falls, injuries, and falling into our already overburdened healthcare system. The good news is that denervation, again when caused by being sedentary, can be slowed, sometimes reversed, by consistent exercise in life. Now for decades, society has put a heavy focus, on obesity and depression, and rightly so. These are terrible things. Yet both continue to rise, despite advances in science and medication. Both of these issues are part of a larger challenge called functional decline, when physical and/or mental struggles disrupt our daily lives. I liken it to a slow-moving train that creeps up on you, and people are far too slow to get out of the way of. But trust me, getting hit by a train at any speed is devastating. Let me show you statistically what this looks like. In the upper left corner, we have our first group of consistent exercises, approximately 29, 30 years of age. They have 100% functionality of their body, physically, mentally. They could probably squat all the way down to the floor and back up without any issues. By the time they reach their 80s, they can still do that, slower, but they are probably not reliant on our healthcare system, which can ill afford them at this point. Now, their quality of life is also probably pretty good. More problematic is the next group, inconsistent exercisers. By the time they've reached their 80s, they've lost over 50% of their functionality. They're not squatting down on the floor. If they do, they're not getting back up anytime soon. In fact, they're probably having difficulty getting out of their chair easily without help in their arms or someone pulling them out. They very likely are using the healthcare system to help them. They likely are not dealing with stress that well. I hope that gives you a bit, just a little bit of a scare or a concern. But if it doesn't, I hope this next group does. These are non-exercisers. By the time they've reached their 50s, they've lost 50% functionality in their body, probably already needing the healthcare system to help them. If they reach their 80s, which statistically very few do, they've lost over 90% functionality of their body, physically and mentally, in many cases. The good news is that consistent exercise can help slow, in some cases even partially reverse, functional decline. Now earlier I had asked you some questions, which I'd like to come back to. Hopefully you remembered your answers. Of those of you who said you love exercising, great. It's interesting though, because many of you also said you struggled with consistent exercise. Those answers don't seem to jive well together. But what about taxes? Nobody loves doing taxes, come on, except for the 3 guys that raise their hand. They're all accountants, no doubt. But we still do them, especially if we owe. Why? There's immediate consequences if we don't. There's penalties to be had. With exercise, if you skip a workout, there's no immediate consequence. They happen later in life, sometimes years in life, when it's much harder to reverse them. This is yet another reason why consistent exercise is so challenging. There's no urgency, but there should be, as to why people feel they love exercising. Could it actually be the extrinsic aspects that they love? Not the intrinsic element of exerting yourself in a workout, but the extrinsic, the after effects, sense of achievement. You finished your activity. Exercise has been shown to improve our moods. You've got to be consistent with it, though. Exercise burns calories. Now, you have to be smart about this. You have to have a plan in place. Fad diets do not work. They've been shown not to work. You have to plan out long term, 6 months to a year minimum, to see some marginal effect. Health benefits. Most important muscle in the body? It's the heart. If you don't work it, it will start letting you down, and thus making it harder to work the other muscles in the body. Feeling stronger is good. For nothing else, preventing things like osteoporosis, not just in females, but males also, especially over 50 and so on. So now that I've been referencing things as to why consistent exercise is so challenging, what can you do? Listen, I love gyms, worked with a lot of them, trained a lot of their trainers, but they can be expensive. They've got a lot of variety in staff and motivational help, but if you can't afford a gym membership and or the time, I get that. So use what you have. Use the best gym in the world. It's your body weight. You do have to take the time to learn how to do these, but the cool thing about body weight exercises, you can do it from a beginner. Here's my simulated wall push-up, all the way to a highly athletic body lift push-up. They both work similar muscles with different loads, but the great thing, they were both free. They didn't cost me anything, money-wise or time per se. Take the time to learn how to do this. You can work the entire body, but it will take a bit of time to learn it. I'm a student of science. I love information. But it's always amazed me how our societies have, for the most part, put our focus on educating individuals for future activities, languages, jobs, careers, and I say plural. Sadly, percentage-wise, very few people on the planet actually educate themselves about maintaining their body. You only get one body, one. Over the years, I can't recall how many people in their 50s and 60s have come to me, male and female, and said, Mike, I'm so far gone now, I can't get it back. I don't know what to do. Rubbish. If you do nothing to look after yourself in North America, you'll still live into your 70s, no doubt. It may not be a great quality of life, but you may actually even live to your 80s. Meaning you have the time to make the change. You need to put a plan together that starts with a minimum of a 6-month period, if not a year, with progressive, very slow changes. These will be sustainable changes over time, which will allow you to get to some other level should you wish to. When should you start this? Now, tonight. Start tonight. Our healthcare system is hurting. Go home tonight. What can you do to challenge your body just a little bit more than you're used to so you won't upset your brain, which is another topic altogether? But start progressively. Walk a little bit faster. Maybe walk a little bit farther. Maybe drink a little more water. Maybe breathe a little bit more. Maybe meditate. But start thinking about this now. Don't say, I'm going to make a change January 1st. It's going to be that much harder to make the changes. Trust me, it's just science. For myself, my catchphrase in life is challenge the body or it will challenge you. Did you hear that? Get out of the way now before it's too late. Thank you.